Hey everybody, Mark Ellert here. And Mark is getting upset, but that's okay. Mark is getting upset. That's why Mark goes to therapy. And this is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a suicide survivor. And that's why I'm making this video. Is because yesterday, September 12th, was the 18-year anniversary of my attempted suicide. And ever since then, I've never actually once attempted again, and I never will. Because mark my words, mental health awareness saved my life. Through therapy, after rehabilitating myself after my brain injury, I realized that day, September 12th, 2004, when I put that gun to my head, I wasn't trying to take my life. I didn't actually want to go. I didn't want to die. I was trying to end that mental and emotional pain I had. I was under too much emotional distress. I couldn't sort it out. I didn't have the coping mechanisms. I didn't know how to deal with things. So it's not that I wanted to end my life, I just didn't know how to deal with that stuff. But that's why, again, therapy has saved my life. Through therapy, I've learned so much about myself that I was too afraid to discover before. I've learned so much about what happened on that day. In therapy, it just gives us that freedom. We're not gonna get judged. It's an open space for us to just talk it out, the things that we need to. We've all got that stuff going around in our head, just joggling around that we wanna get out, but we're worried about what people will think about us. We're worried about the judgment. We're worried about if we're right or not. We don't know if we should feel that way. There's stuff that people repress and just push down too much. It's gonna come out in different parts of the day in you, and you don't want that. It's good to just be able to get that stuff out of your head, and it's good to just leave it in therapy. There's not gonna be any judgment. They're only there to help you, and you're gonna learn so much about yourself. I learned a lot about myself. Like that day, I realized that was actually a moment of mania. Through therapy, talking to this person, my therapist, for so much, I've been able to learn how I was thinking, how I was feeling, and the way it made me act. You really do start to learn that the cause and effect. You start to realize, I'm thinking this, I feel this, I behave this way. I don't like this behavior. I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the way I'm thinking. You can change those patterns. You start to recognize those patterns. I was thinking things that made me feel things that led to things. I can change those thoughts so I can change that feeling and change the behavior. I've been able to change a lot of things about the way I operate, the way I communicate with people, a lot of things. I had a lot of insecurities. I always felt like people didn't love me. I never felt like I was good enough. That's because I didn't love myself. I had a lot of friends, my family, I had a lot of love, but I still felt empty and cold inside because I didn't love myself. That love coming from an outside source, it just wasn't registering for me. I wanted it from the outside, but didn't have it inside. So now I've actually learned how to love myself, and I'm feeling that love from my family and friends. And because of my insecurities, I had a lot of codependency. I always just relied so much on other people. I wanted people in my life. And because of my insecurities, when I wasn't feeling right about myself, I didn't know how to talk to them about it. I was too worried about those people leaving me. I already felt like I wasn't good enough, so I didn't want to talk about my problems because that would give them more reason to want to leave me. My communication was bad. Like, for instance, I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know how to say things. I did it in my body language and self-harm. It was easy for me to want to hurt myself when I would show people that there's something bothering me that I wanted to talk about. I would let them ask me the questions and bring it out of me because I didn't know how to approach it. But again, in therapy, this is a chance for me to talk about the things that I need to so I don't have to harness it and repress it down. Like the day my attempted suicide happened, when I was actually found by the authorities, there was some skepticism. People didn't know what happened. No one really knew, and they were actually hypothesizing what happened. My little brother got to the hospital. When he got to the hospital, first thing he did was walk into the hospital, pick up my hands and look at them, and he completely fell apart, and he knew that it was a suicide because he knew my way of communicating. Previously, before my suicide attempt, I was trying to show people my body language I wasn't doing well. I was punching things and breaking things so you could see the effect it had on my hands. You could see that I was an angry person. No one picked up on those signs, and it led to my suicide. My little brother, he knew my communication skills. Only a few people knew my communication. But that's why, again, I changed my communication now. I know how to openly talk about things so I don't repress them and hurt myself. I know it's better for me to have great communication and these things with people rather than avoid the conflict. Because I deserve to be able to talk about it. I'm an emotional person, so as a human, I have the right to those emotions. I can feel them, but it's good to feel it in a healthy and constructive way. I don't want to stay in that place. So in therapy, I can talk about these emotions and process and work through them. I can leave it in therapy, and then I can just not let it actually interfere with my regular daily routine. in therapy, I'm talking about it, I can learn so much about myself and my habits. That's actually going through my steps and tracing what happened that day. I also know that it was a moment of bipolar mania. See, through therapy, learning so much about myself, I was also able to pick up a psychiatrist. Because after learning things about myself and making those adjustments, there were still things that I couldn't do on my own. I needed a little bit of help. And actually, through therapy and through my psychiatrist, I can manage this shit show. With the right medications, I can manage things I can't do on my own. And with the right therapy, I'm managing my other problems. And that's why I really encourage anybody who's considering therapy to go. Because if this ship's not sinking, if I can sail this shipwreck across the ocean, anybody can. If I can learn how to love myself and be happy and prosperous, anybody can. That's why I really encourage you. You can learn so much about yourself in therapy. It's just an open, free place for you to be able to not be judged and talk about the things that you need to, so you can leave them there. Like again, my bipolar mania, that's what caused this. I was able to notice my trigger. At that point in my life, I was in a really bad place. It was a really bad low. Low energy, was feeling terrible about a lot of things. So one day, all of a sudden, I just got that mental image of that gun in my head. I just got that idea that flashed in front of my mind, and I had a feeling of euphoria. It was just like an ultimate high. But that again, that was my bipolar mania. It was an episode of mania, because I was in such a low place. When I had an idea that pulled me out of that depression, it made me feel good. It made me feel really good, but just because it was taking me out of the depression. It is mania, it's delusion, it's psychosis. It's a moment where I'm actually not grounded in reality. I'm not thinking with my rational mind. It was purely out of emotion, because your brain has two hemispheres. You have your emotional mind and your rational mind. In that moment, in my bipolar mania, that was all emotion, because I was so depressed. When I had an idea, it made me feel so good, I didn't realize the reality of it. It was just a feeling that made me feel good, so that's why I followed through with it. I never stopped and thought about it. But that's why I know those triggers now. When I'm having an episode of mania, when I'm having a low and I get an idea that feels great, I know how to stop. I recognize this is feeling too good. Step and think this through. I take a step back, I take a deep breath. I change my mind. I will do something different. I'll take the edge off. I'm like, you know what? I'm too involved in this right now. I'll walk away. I'll go play some guitar. I'll go play my drums. I'll let that emotional edge off. I'll do something. I'll come back to it hours later and relook at the scenario. Whew, what were you thinking, man? That is not a good idea. You were not thinking with your rational mind. I was way off the edge thinking with my emotions. But that's why I've been able to realize that about myself. I'm an emotional person. Bipolar mania, I was having a moment of psychosis. I couldn't control what I was thinking. It was a moment of delusion. But I've learned a way to notice those triggers. I've learned a way to stop them from happening, those episodes. That's why, again, if I can do this, anybody can. Everyone, yesterday was the 18-year anniversary. I never have, and I never will again. I don't want anyone to ever be there. If I can learn how to love myself and be happy and prosperous, I want you to know anybody can. Mark my words. Mental health awareness saved my life.